Okay, so next up are closed or remote conditionals. So these ones involve conditions that are unfulfilled, unlikely to be fulfilled, and in some cases have definitely not been fulfilled. So for past and present conditionals, these are the ones that we would call closed because they're describing the potential of something that didn't happen. So if you were to say in English, for example, if he would have gone home, he would have been safe. That's in the past, and it suggests that whoever we're talking about there didn't go home. Okay, so they're closed, didn't happen. In the future, you obviously can't decide that something won't happen in the future because, as we discussed in the previous conditionals, you're never fully sure of what will or won't happen. So these ones are the remote conditionals. They are unlikely to be fulfilled. Now, if you think about this, if we're talking about things that are unlikely to be fulfilled, probably won't be fulfilled, this isn't a fact. And what kind of verbs do we use when it's not factual? We use the subjunctives. So both the protasis and the apodosis here will be in the subjunctive mood. Okay, this is how the subjunctives work in closed or remote conditionals. As you can see kind of at first glance, it looks like the tenses are a little bit weird because a past closed conditional uses pluperfect subjunctives in both parts of the sentence. The present closed conditional uses imperfect subjunctives in both parts, and the future remote uses present subjunctive in both parts. So it's almost like the Latin is a tense behind the tense that you will then put it into when you translate it into English. This kind of makes sense when you think about the future remote because there is no future subjunctive. We need to use a present subjunctive. So therefore that kind of pushes the tenses back of each of the subjunctives. The main thing here is with closed and remote conditionals and therefore with subjunctive verbs, the way that you make it really clear that you've spotted it is by using the English word would, because then you know that this is a conditional and that it's not a fact and it's not happened. Okay, so let's look at some translations and how these work. So our first one are past closed. So it starts off by making a lot of sense. If you had said this, pluperfect subjunctive becomes pluperfect in the English. And now we need to put in the word would to show that we know it's a conditional. So you would have made a mistake. We're obviously not going to translate that second pluperfect as pluperfect because it would make no sense, but it needs to stay in the past. Okay, let's have a look at the present closed, the imperfect subjunctives here. So if you were saying, so it sounds very imperfect there, this, okay, and then the next bit we need our would. So this is where it sounds present. You would be making a mistake. Okay, so although it's imperfect subjunctive, once you translate it, it does sound like a present closed. And it's also imperfect subjunctive because remember, this is something that has the potential to happen in the present tense, but it hasn't. It's not happened. It's closed off, which is why it's in the imperfect subjunctive. Okay. Final one, the future remote. So we've got two present subjunctives here, and these are translated as if you say this, if you say this, you again would make a mistake. So note that in all of the second parts of the clauses, the apodosis, in every single sentence, when we translate it, we've included the word would to prove that it's a conditional. So the final complication, you can also mix tenses in closed and remote conditional. So you can see here we've got a pluperfect subjunctive followed by an imperfect subjunctive, and this one we would translate as if you had run to the city, you would now see the king. So the first bit shows that the action would have had to have happened in the past. The second bit shows that the result would be happening right now in the present.